let's talk about this, because it has to do a lot with the Ukrainian protest, with the protests on the Ukrainian border, of the Polish farmer protest. And I think I need to do a lot more on the fact that behind the protest, there's a certain political party, a political party called the Confederacy, a political party that is anti-European Union, anti-Semitic, anti-taxes, anti-abortion, anti-everything, anti-Ukraine. But strangely enough, it is pro-something. That party is pro-something, and that thing is Russia, interestingly enough. The Confederacy Party is pro-Russia. So we're gonna check out a thing, and then I'm gonna try to search for an interview, okay? I'm gonna try to find you an interview based on this. This post is pretty illuminating, so we're gonna read it a bit. I'm gonna translate some of it for you. It speaks, of course, of the Confederacy Party and its wild, wild adventures. Let's go. React. Oh, nice. That is lovely to see. Yeah. She's back. I'm sorry. What do you want me to watch?
The rioting needs to fucking stop.
Yeah, okay, I know the clip. It's very famous at this point. I know about the clip. It is quite famous at this point. Damn. Okay. Yesterday, because on the 27th, I went to a protest of Polish farmers who are against certain injustices that are happening to them. And at the same time, there was an interview of a high person within the hierarchy of the Confederacy Party, Grzegorz Braun, a well-known anti-Semite who attacks Christmas tree as long as they have Ukrainian flags on them, and also goes to shut down any Hanukkah events in the parliament. Just so you know. So yesterday on the portal with movies to turn on your thinking, there was an interview of Barelkowski, okay, with an MP, Grzegorz Braun. And it is a very interesting interview, especially its second half, which was about Russia. There were questions about Russia. And I have gathered the most interesting fragments from that interview. I'd sure like to watch that interview full. Okay, I'm gonna read the things that are actually significant to international audiences and are not overly Polish. Okay, so this thing became really interesting further on when Berełkowski points out to a danger
Tak,
that
ale
comes from Russia. Brown is attempting to sort of make the problem less than it is and talks about that Russia doesn't have any territorial claims when it comes to Poland, which is not exactly true because Russia has already said that Poland should give up its western territory, interestingly enough, that it got from the USSR. Oh, and also Brown has said that actually it's Ukraine that wants territory from Poland. Let's hear. There's a clip. So let's see. I'm going to translate what's being said from this clip. So Russia's good. There's no danger from Russia because Russia doesn't have any territorial claims over Poland, which is not true. But actually, the real danger is Ukraine that has territorial claims over Poland, apparently.
musimy tutaj
We have to...
wprowadzić
It is here that we have to sort of insert
kolejnego wielkiego aktora do tej rozmowy, mówiąc językiem geopolitycznym, chyba game changera troszeczkę.
Jesus. We have to insert into this conversation another big player to speak in the geopolitical jargon, a game changer.
Otóż ta nasza akademicka dyskusja trochę nie bierze pod uwagę istnienia Rosji.
Our little academic discussion does not take into account the existence of a country called Russia. Thank you for the $20 for my birthday. Thank you, fake Kyle Parker. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you.
I zagrożenia, jakie... I to jest też ten powód do łatwych ataków na pana. Nie przeczę, że nieuzasadnionych. Uważam, że w pewnym stopniu uzasadnionych, bo nie bierze pan nie bierze pan pod uwagę tego, że Rosja jest czynnikiem, który troszeczkę i musi korygować nasz stosunek do Ukraińców i musi troszeczkę korygować nasz stosunek do sojusznika amerykańskiego.
So I think this is what the person is saying. I believe that there are certain attacks on you that I think are warranted. I believe that we have to take into account that Russia is a factor. We have to take into account that Russia is a dangerous player. It has to change the way we view Ukraine, and it also has to have an effect on how we view our American ally.
Bo prosto pytając,
so I will ask you directly.
Kto nas przed ekspansją tego aktora, tego ważnego czynnika geopolitycznego...
Pan coś wie, czego ja...
Who is going to defend us against the expansion of Russia? I'll ask you directly. A very direct question. And Brown answers.
Nie wiem o jakichś roszczeniach
You know something about that I don't know about some territorial claims.
terytorialnych, które Moskale wysuwaliby wobec Polski. Pan...
Do you know of any territorial claims that Russia would allegedly want from Poland? I mean, I have a very easy territorial claim. Putin would certainly want Poland to be back, at least in the influence sphere of Russia, like Poland has been in the Soviet bloc in the influence sphere of the USSR. And if we go back even further back a little bit, Poland was part of the Russian Empire. So to say that there are no territorial claims whatsoever from Russia when it comes to Poland is comical. It is comical to say the least that Russia has zero territorial claims. You would have to be historically illiterate to claim such a thing.
Coś wie, ale obaj wiemy za to o roszczeniach terytorialnych wysuwanych przez ukraińskich banderowców.
So Are you aware of any territorial claims from Russia? I am not. But we are both, however, familiar with territorial claims against Poland from the Ukrainian Banderites. The legendary Ukrainian Banderites.
Wobec Polski.
Oczywiście.
Ukraina wielka, Zasan,
Wiemy,
Kraków,
że Ukraina,
Rzeszów.
ale
Oh yeah, Ukraine wants Kraków, Ukraine wants Rzeszów, for sure. For sure.
panie pośle, wiemy
O Chełmie
oczywiście,
nie wspomnę.
It also wants Chełmno.
wiemy o całej liście grzechów ukraińskich,
We all know about the whole list of sins of Ukraine.
wiemy o problemach, które generują.
No to
We all know about the problems they generate.
Bardzo dobrze, że my wiemy, ale reżimowe media nadal o tym milczą.
We very well know about these problems, but the media of the regime are quiet about it.
A ludzie...
Szczęść
Yes, I think it is sometimes valuable for a few reasons to expose ourselves to the brain rot of radical political actors, because people like him are influencing a very big protest right now in Poland that is part of an even bigger European-wide protest. And it's really important to see firsthand what sort of ideology feeds the ideology of the protesting peasants, farmers.
Boże, nie jesteśmy w reżimowych mediach, tylko rozmawiamy jak Polacy tutaj bez tabu i bardzo otwarcie. Tak, ale musimy tutaj wprowadzić tabu i bardzo
We aren't in the regime media. We just talk here openly, like two Polish people, without any taboos. And that's where the clip ends. The ultimatum of Lavrov from 2021, which attacked the right of Poland to make, to choose its allies on its own, also did not make any, also did not impress Mr. Brown very much. The opposite, actually. He says that it was him that protested against NATO being in Poland. Let's hear.
I chcę panu jeszcze jedno powiedzieć.
I want to tell you something else. I want to tell you something more.
No właśnie to jest podstawowa sprawa, że my
That is the very essence of the matter.
musimy brać pod uwagę, bo ja na przykład słyszałem,
We have to take into consideration, because, for example, I have heard
że pan też słyszał
that you also have heard
o ultimatum ministra Ławrowa
about the ultimatum of Minister Lavrov
w stosunku do Polski
towards Poland
i krajów NATO.
and other NATO countries.
I
A
właśnie-
między innymi to ultimatum Ławrowa z 2021 roku,
You remember the ultimatum of Lavrov from 2021,
bodaj z grudnia,
from the end of the year.
mówiło o tym, że musimy wyprowadzić wszystkie wojska za Odrę.
It said that we have to move back all of our troops behind the Odra River.
Nie polskie wojska
We have to withdraw all foreign forces behind Odra River.
za Odrę, bodajże. No i to ultimatum mówiło także, że tutaj swoboda działania gospodarczego i wpływów Rosji musi być nie tylko na Ukrainie, ale także w krajach bałtyckich i w Polsce.
And also Lavrov said that the freedom of economic sort of doing business has to be guaranteed not just in Ukraine, it also has to be guaranteed in the Baltics and in Poland. So withdraw all troops, NATO troops from Poland, and allow Russian free reign when it comes to trade. That was the ultimatum.
A wie pan, że nie cieszyłem się i nawet popierałem skromne, nader skromne protesty, kiedy instalowane były wojska obce na terytorium Rzeczypospolitej.
And do you know that I didn't really like it? I actually joined the humble protests when Poland has been installing foreign forces within our territory.
Polskiej. To się działo w roku 2016.
It was in 2016.
Tutaj była taka wielka impreza propagandowa.
There was a huge propaganda event.
Przejazd Amerykanów przez kolejne miasta polskie.
When the US forces moved through different cities in Poland.
I ja wtedy traktowałem to jako straszny sen,
And I treated that as a nightmare.
Bo, proszę pozwolić, że dokończę.
Because please allow me to finish.
Ja jestem człowiekiem starszej daty.
I am an older man.
I pamiętam to niezwykle pozytywne przeżycie.
And I remember the very positive feeling.
Jakim było wyprowadzenie z Polski północnej grupy wojsk Armii Czerwonej.
When we made the Red Army leave.
Pozytywne to mało powiedziane.
To say it was positive is understating it, because NATO forces that are here to defend us against Russians, whom the Red Army belonged to, is basically the same as the Red Army being in Poland. Grzegorz Braun is just an idiot, or well, not exactly an idiot, a very malicious actor. A very malicious actor.
Ja traktowałem to jako cud.
And I treated that as a miracle.
Ja nie byłem takim geostrategiem, żeby spodziewać się tego bez wojny, bez
I wasn't such a geostrategist to expect the Red Army leaving without a war.
III wojny światowej. Więc
The Third World War.
tak mnie to uszczęśliwiło,
It
że
made me so happy.
musiałem traktować jako koszmar senny to, że za mojego życia pojawiają się ludzie, którzy sprowadzanie wojsk obcych na terytorium Rzeczypospolitej Polskiej traktują jako nową dyrektywę, jako nowy wyznacznik polskiego patriotyzmu.
So I had to treat like a nightmare that people would actually bring in foreign forces to Poland and treat it like a new doctrine of what patriotism is supposed to be. Do you see? According to this guy, and I don't know if he believes it or not, but according to this guy, having NATO forces in Poland, having US forces in Poland is basically the same thing as the Red Army stationing in Poland, which are two different things, two different doctrines, right?
Otóż to dla mnie nie jest wyznacznikiem polskiego patriotyzmu.
So to me, that is not a census or any sort of, way to gauge Polish patriotism. Of course, not a word about the responsibility of Putin for the eruption of the war. But it's totally different with Anglo-Saxons, whom during World War II and now are pushing others into war. And once again, we hear the mantra about Ukrainian people wanting Polish territory.
Ale Ukraińców do piachu poszło już może i 400 000, bo parę miesięcy
Wow, maybe 400,000 Ukrainians have already died.
temu to było 300 kilkadziesiąt.
Because it used to be 300-something thousand a few months ago.
Rosjanie chyba mówią o 200.
The Russians are talking about 200.
Skoro oni mówią o 200
If they are talking about 200,
tysięcy,
Wie pan, ja doliczam do tego tych, którzy nie wyszli i nie będą już nigdy zdrowi.
you know what? I count to this those who are not free and will not be healthy ever anymore.
Na umyśle, na
They will not be healthy on the mind and on the body.
ciele, kaleki
They will be crippled.
wojenne.
There will be war cripples.
I wie pan,
And
no
you know what?
to jest chyba zupełnie ewidentne,
It is absolutely evident
że już trzeci rok prowadzona jest wojna Amerykanów z Chińczykami
that it is a third war, that it is a third year of a war that is led by the US against China
per procura na froncie rosyjskim
on the Russian-Ukrainian front.
do ostatniego żywego
To the last Ukrainian.
Ukraińca, a za chwilę być może do ostatniego żywego Polaka.
And in a moment, the US will fight that war to the last living Polish person.
I ja się temu sprzeciwiam.
And I'm against it.
Ja nie życzę tak źle Ukraińcom,
I do not wish so badly I do not have such bad thoughts towards Ukraine.
żebym im życzył utraty kompletnej własnej państwowości,
That I would want them to completely lose their sovereignty.
a do tego to zmierza. I
And that is where it's headed.
oczywiście nie życzę moim rodakom tego, żeby po raz kolejny w historii naród polski miał być wepchnięty pod ciężarówkę z gruzem,
And I do not want, once again, the Polish nation to be pushed under the truck full of debris,
tak jak się to stało w roku 1939
as it happened in 1939
przez anglosasów,
by the Anglo-Saxons,
którzy w bezczelny sposób wracają do swojej starej gry, czyli
who are blatantly going to their old game.
obiecują gruszki na wierzbę,
So they're promising ridiculous things.
na wierzbie, podpisują z nami jakieś pakty obronne, z których
They sign defense treaties,
oczywiście nie zamierzają się wywiązywać.
which they will never respect.
Tak było, tak jest, czy tak
It was like that. It is.
musi być? Nie.
Does it have to be like that? No.
Musi Polska przyjść do zdrowego rozsądku
Poland needs to come to its senses.
i nie ma zdrowego rozsądku
It doesn't have common sense.
w takich tromtadrackich wypowiedziach, jak wypowiedzi marszałka Hołowni o wdeptywaniu
There is no common sense in talking about defeating Russia,
wgniataniu w ziemię głowy sąsiadującego z nami państwa. Nie wiem, czy pan zauważył, mamy
I don't know if you've noticed.
granicę z Rosją,
We have a border with Russia, and talking about squashing a country that is our neighbor.
ale nie ma roszczeń terytorialnych.
But they don't have any territorial claims.
Tego bym się trzymał.
And I will go by that. Do you see now? Are you getting a glimpse as to what the Confederacy Party is? Are you now getting a little bit of an idea as to what the Confederacy Party represents with itself? Next, in the context of NATO, we have a little bit of a tirade from which we're supposed to take how much we are losing by from our alliance with the Americans, Anglo-Saxons. It ends with a suggestive sort of insinuation that actually Belarus is in a far better allyship, is in a far better that Belarus is in a far better alliance than Poland. That Belarus having an alliance with Russia is far more beneficial for Belarus than Polish alliances are for Poland. I will remind you once again that Russia is actually, as we speak, preparing to completely incorporate Belarus into its borders, dissolving it in effect. Just a little bit of a reminder. Let's listen to the statement. I'm curious about it.
Tego pola bitwy bez zaplecza, nie wiem, logistyki.
That field of battle without sort of the backing of logistics,
Zapasów części,
without having spare parts,
satelitarnego
without having satellite support,
zwiadu,
A widzi pan,
technologii,
technology,
to my nie jesteśmy w stanie być tutaj rozgrywającym.
we are not able to be key players here.
My musimy być w jakimś sojuszu,
We do need to be in some sort of alliances.
musimy być w jakimś układzie, możliwie
We do need to be in some sort of pact with other countries.
korzystnym, a tak się dziwnie składa,
And it so just happens.
I to narusi.
ale jeszcze jedno zdanie, które
One more thing.
chyba jest najważniejsze. A tak się cudownie jakoś
And it just so happens
dziwnie składa, że albo będziemy w tym sojuszu,
that we either are going to be in the alliance that we are now,
który ma realne znaczenie,
that has a realistic sort of, that actually has any realistic say on the chessboard, so to speak.
gdzie patronem jest Ameryka,
Its patron is the US,
daleko,
whether it's far,
z pewnymi oczywiście ułomnościami
with some faults,
ideologicznymi dla nas,
ideological to us,
Polaków, ale
for us Polish people.
jednak,
Mogę
ale
chwilkę?
jednak
But it's still,
chwilkę?
albo ci ze wschodu,
or the East, or we become part of the sphere of Russia.
Mogę chwilkę?
z cywilizacji turańskiej.
Szanowny panie redaktorze,
Dear sir,
co zrobiliśmy w ostatnich latach
what have we done in recent years
na gwizdnięcie towarzyszy amerykańskich?
to the whistle to our American comrades?
Udostępniliśmy nasze terytorium w
But just giving them our territory
charakterze zaplecza frontu
to allow them to have this, backing when it comes to the front.
ukraińskiego.
Yes, we've become like this backstage of the Ukrainian front.
Wyprzedaliśmy nasze aktywa. Nie, co ja mówię, nie wyprzedaliśmy, bo myśmy złotówki
We have sold. No, we haven't gotten a penny out of it.
za to nie dostali. Oddaliśmy
We have given away
wszystko Ukrainie.
all that we own to Ukraine.
Także polskie wojsko i policja, wie pan, nawet nie mają
So the Polish army and the police,
już czym strzelać.
they don't have anything to shoot with.
Gdyby Anglosasi rzeczywiście chcieli
If the Anglo-Saxons really wanted to
pokoju,
have peace,
no to, wie pan, mają do tego najprostszą drogę.
they have the easiest road to that.
Wzmacniać wojsko polskie.
It's to strengthen the Polish army.
To jest gwarancja pokoju w Europie
That is the guarantee of peace in Europe.
Środkowej. I wbrew pozorom to nie
And unlike what you might think,
instalacja baz, które są
it's not the installation of bases,
kosztowne,
which are expensive
właśnie generują problemy rozmaite
and generate certain political problems
polityczne i eskalują
and
sytuację.
escalate the situation.
To nie zwiększa potencjału wojska
That does not strengthen the potential of the Polish army.
polskiego. Pan wspomniał, to ważna rzecz,
You said something, it is important,
środki dalekiego rozpoznania,
about, intelligence, as in, foreign intelligence,
strategicznego. A wie
and our intelligence, sort of spies, etc.
pan, że Białoruś już ma takie środki, a my
Did you know that Belarus has those assets and we do not?
nie mamy. A kto tutaj rządził przez ostatnią blisko dekadę? No,
And who has been ruling here for the last decade?
sztandarowi patrioci.
Patriots.
ale oni wszystko dla Ukrainy,
but they gave everything to Ukraine.
a wcześniej tylko tak jak tam właśnie w Waszyngtonie ustalono i co przekazano.
And then they just listened before that to Washington.
No.
So, there we have it. When hearing about blood flowing in Ukraine and that the blood is on Putin's hands, the MP Grzegorz Braun only laughed and told a very, very funny, very stereotypical anecdote, a little bit of a story that Putin, by attacking Ukraine, has cured the world of a pandemic, and that Putin should be given a Nobel Prize for it. Let's listen.
Tak, ten straszny człowiek tym, że...
Bo jak pan widzi, proszę mnie odpowiedzieć na to pytanie, jak pan widzi w takim razie możliwość przeciwstawienia się tendencjom rosyjskim, skoro diagnozę mamy
po prostu
podobną,
trzeba mieć własne
So as you can see, how can we go against the tendencies of Russia if we have the diagnosis of...
państwo, a nie wydmuszkę, nie lokajstwo. Tym, że...
Bo jak pan widzi, proszę mnie odpowiedzieć na to pytanie,
Answer me this question.
jak pan widzi w takim razie
How do you see the possibility of stopping Russia's tendencies?
możliwość przeciwstawienia się tendencjom rosyjskim, skoro
If
diagnozę mamy
po prostu
podobną,
trzeba mieć własne państwo, a nie
we have to have our own independent state,
wydmuszkę, nie
not some empty shell,
lokajstwo
not servitude,
na rzecz tej czy innej stolicy.
when it comes to that or other, not some servitude when it comes to this or other capital,
Nie ścielenie się do stóp przed Ukraińcami,
not going to the feet of Ukrainians.
rezunami, Żydami,
What the
Żydami, anglosasami, rezunami, Żydami przed Ukraińcami, rezunami,
other Jews and Anglo-Saxons,
Żydami, anglosasami, Niemcami,
Germans,
Moskalami. Trzeba
Muscovites.
mieć własne państwo,
We have to have our own independent state.
panie redaktorze. I to jest sprawa prostego wyboru,
And that is a question of an easy choice,
którego dokonali rządzący.
which was made by the rulers of this country.
Rządzący w poprzednim i w aktualnym
The rulers of the last government and the current one.
rozdaniu. Oni się rozstali z suwerennością.
They have given up on Polish sovereignty.
Oni tylko mają przed sobą taki wybór, której
They just want this sort of choice.
klamki się uwiesić.
Who should we serve?
Której klamki
a może
się
mają taki wybór, czy
Maybe they have maybe have this sort of choice.
Ameryka z całym dobrodziejstwem inwentarza, jak
Do we choose the US with all the good and the bad?
już tutaj dużo o tym mówiliśmy,
We have spoken about it a bit here.
czy Putin
Or Putin.
Panie redaktorze,
zbroczonymi krwią
So do we choose the US with all of its bad and good, or do we choose Putin, whose hands are soaked with blood?
rękami?
tak, ten straszny człowiek,
Yes, that horrible man
który uleczył świat z pandemii.
who has healed the world from a pandemic.
Zauważył pan, jemu Nobel się należy.
He should get a Nobel Prize.
Ciągle zaległy Nobel dla Włodzimierza.
He still needs a Nobel Prize for curing the worldwide pandemic. Because of course the Confederacy was were COVID deniers. They were anti-vaxxers, because of course those beliefs always come in sets.
Putina
I pan chce nie być postrzegany jako
z medycyny,
opcja prorosyjska.
dlatego że z tego
So we're choosing the pro-Russian option.
dnia na tydzień świat, w każdym razie u nas w Polsce, został uleczony z pandemii. No przecież pan widzi, że to jest grubymi nićmi szyta propaganda. Powtarzam, ta sama od wieków. Od wieków.
So I tell you, it's been like that for centuries. It has been like that for centuries. So there we have it. When asked once again about Putin, Mr. Brown has decided to share his Napoleonic concept, which would include accepting the annexation of Crimea in exchange for negotiations, so accepting the annexation of Crimea in exchange negotiation the status of Kaliningrad, and for sure His Excellency Putin would surely consider such a proposition. His Excellency Putin would surely agree to this proposition.
Bardzo aktualnym zamiarem i już
A very current intent,
można powiedzieć, witają się z gąską, bo wystarczy tylko wepchnąć Polaków pod
because all you have to do is squeeze Polish people into the thing,
ciężarówkę z gruzem i będzie już można wrócić do zarządzania Europą Środkową.
and you'll be able to return to being in charge of Central Europe.
Mitel Europą, zresztą z nadania Amerykanów.
And the Americans will be in charge.
Ponieważ Anglosasi
Because the Anglo-Saxons,
od wieków
for centuries,
mieli Prusaków za głównego swojego plenipotenta i podwykonawcę na
they saw the Prussians, the Germans, as the main enforcers of their will
kontynencie. Nie wiem, czy
on
pan
the continent.
pamięta, że
I don't know if you remember, but
płacili na wojny prowadzone
but they have paid for wars that have been waged
przez Berlin i przez Wiedeń.
by Berlin and Wiedeń.
O, jak wjeżdżamy od Raszyna do Warszawy, to proszę wspomnieć, że
If you go from Russia to Warsaw,
jak książę Józef tam na grobli falenckiej, prawda, prowadził kontratak, potem zresztą
please notice some prince that led a counteroffensive,
oddał Warszawę, za co mu
and he gave Warsaw.
się ten pomnik, który należy, oddał, pięknym manewrem poszedł na Lublin, Kraków,
He went to Lublin, Krakow,
Austriacy sami się wycofali z Warszawy,
and
ale
Germans retreated.
do czego zmierzam? To za angielskie
What do you want to say?
pieniądze Austriacy
It's all for English money that the Austrians were able to
podeszli
attack.
wtedy pod
To wszystko
Warszawę
prawda,
na
ale co z tym
wojnę
Putinem?
siedmioletnią.
Co z tym
Prusacy
Putinem? Bo
dostawali
pan jak-
subwencje brytyjskie.
Okay. When asked about war crimes, Brown tries to knock the ball back. When asked about war crimes, Brown tries to knock the ball back, asking about international investigation into Bucha. Who would worry about the lefty UN? And then, when asked about the dangers towards Poland's sovereignty from the Russian Federation, he's starting to babble about pipelines and about the need to stand up from knees.
Pan jak gdyby, no tak to
prostu,
rozumiem,
wie pan,
pan go
wszystko
jakoś
się
tam rozgrzesza.
I think like you're sort of putting off the hook.
A zbrodnie
A z
wojenne?
czego?
his war crimes,
A jego stosunek do własnych obywateli.
when it comes to his attitude towards his own citizens.
Rozliczajmy zbrodnie, tylko wszystkie.
Mówi
Let's talk about crimes, but let's talk about all of them.
pan źle i może częściowo
Let's talk about all the crimes.
słusznie o panu Żeleńskim, ale nie zwraca pan uwagi
You're talking about Zelensky, but you're not talking about
na drugiego szatana, który
the other Satan
tutaj w tej naszej dyskusji
that exists in our little discussion.
Panie redaktorze,
wędruje.
taką obsesję, że się panu
You're having an obsession, dear sir.
wszystko z tym jednym kojarzy.
You're thinking everything just goes back to that one thing for you.
Ale ja wobec tego przyłączę się do pana
But I will join you,
apelu o wyjaśnianie zbrodni
and I want an answer.
i mam nadzieję, że pan razem ze mną będzie
And I hope that you together with me will push
się dopominał i dopytywał, gdzie jest
and ask where is the international investigation of Bucha,
międzynarodowe śledztwo w sprawie zbrodni w Buczy, słynnej.
the famous Bucha massacre.
Gdzie jest to międzynarodowe
Where is the international investigation?
śledztwo? Nie ma go.
There is no.
Już drugi rok
Second year,
nie ma tego.
there is no international investigation.
tu muszę panu
Prawda?
przyznać
Ciekawa sprawa.
Very interesting.
rację. To muszę panu przyznać
I have to admit that you're right here.
rację. Natomiast
But-
jak mówię,
As I
irytuje
said,
mnie nawet
I'm actually quite irritated,
i jest to dla mnie niekonsekwentne.
and it is very, it is not very consistent to me.
No,
Bo z jednej strony mówi
Because on the one
pan
hand,
o sobie jako o
you talk about yourself as some big proponent
zwolenniku opcji, cytuję, propolskiej.
of the pro-Poland option,
Silnej Polski,
a strong
niezależnej,
Poland, independent Poland,
naszego państwa.
our state.
A z drugiej strony
And on the other hand,
całkowicie abstrahuje pan od tego, że inne mocarstwo
you totally ignore the fact that another power, that another sort of country,
równie groźne jak
just as dangerous
te
as
wszystkie zagrożenia, które tutaj
all the dangers that you've described that to us here
zarysowaliśmy ze wschodu i z zachodu,
from the east and the west,
Straszna
że,
sprawa.
że jest pewne mocarstwo,
that there is a global, that there is a power, that there is a country that's a power,
które wprost mówi o tym,
which has directly said
że chciałoby tutaj zawiadywać tymi
that it wants to rule over these lands,
Straszna
terytoriami, że
Straszna.
nastaje na naszą niepodległość.
that actually attacks our sovereignty.
Straszna
Pan tego,
sprawa.
pan tego nie postrzega.
You don't see that?
Chcieli puścić rurociągi przez
They wanted to have pipelines in our country,
nasze terytorium, tak żebyśmy ich tak trzymali w garści.
so we would have held them like this in our hand.
Straszni ludzie.
Terrible people.
Rzeczywiście okropna rzecz. Bardzo
Terrible thing.
dobrze, że się poprzednie rządy post-PRL-owskie na to nie
Very good that the old governments after the Polish People Republic did not agree.
zgodziły. No, wie pan, ironia
You know,
gorzka. Cała polska polityka, nie tylko
the whole of Polish politics,
wschodnia, no,
not just Eastern,
jest w wykonaniu lokajskim.
is that of servitude.
To jest krzyżówka nie do rozwiązania.
It's a puzzle not to be solved.
Po prostu trzeba wstać z kolan,
We just have to get off our knees.
padać na nie, ale przed właściwym ołtarzem.
We have to fall on our knees, but before the right church or whatever, before the right altar.
Wie pan,
Jesus. Wow. You know, We're gonna continue, I guess. This is so wild. So wild. Jesus. What should we even criticize is that poor Russia, after being asked, and after mentioning the ultimatum again, Brown has answered that actually the ultimatum happened when the Americans were building their CIA bases in Ukraine, and suggested that it's all a consequence of Europe being overrun by the Anglo-Saxons. Okay.
Widzi pan, no wraca...
It's all about those Anglo-Saxons. That's horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. Horrible Anglo-Saxons.
Słyszę krytyki z pana ust
Ale krytyki
rządów
czego? Ale
rosyjskich.
krytyki
I don't really hear any criticism from you of the Russian government.
No,
czego?
ich
What do I have to criticize here?
aspiracji antypolskich
I don't know. Their anti-Polish aspirations.
przecież.
Które wyrażają się...
Wspominaliśmy tu
We already have mentioned the ultimatum
Które wyrażają
from 2021.
się czym?
no,
So what are those anti-Polish sentiments exactly?
no na przykład
Well, for example,
ultimatum
the ultimatum
ministra Ławrowa. To
of Minister Lavrov,
jest dyplomatyczny fakt.
Ale
that is a diplomatic fact.
no, w którym momencie to ultimatum zostało?
W
So when did this ultimatum happen?
2021
In 2021.
Widzi pan, no
You see.
tak, no wtedy
Yeah.
budowanie baz CIA na Ukrainie
That is when they built their CIA bases in Ukraine.
to już trwało prawie dekadę.
It has been going on for 10 years by that point.
to ultimatum dotyczyło
Więc,
nie tylko
więc
Ukrainy, ale i naszego
wraca-
państwa.
So we're going back.
tak, no ale widzi pan,
Yeah.
no, wracamy do tej historii
We're going back to the story,
smutnej, jaką jest
the sad story.
podpalanie Europy Środkowej
We're going back to the sad story of burning Central Europe
przez Anglosasów.
by Anglo-Saxons.
Podpalanie Europy Środkowej
pana-
The Anglo-Saxons are burning Central Europe.
Pytam
przez
o Rosję.
wieki. Jeśli
pana
nie
They've been doing it for centuries.
stosunek
mogą
do
nas...
Rosji.
Je,
I pan mi umyka
You know,
jak piskosz.
nie, ja się po prostu już nagadałem.
Z rąk.
I've already talked about this.
Ja zrobiłem no, pewną ilość filmów, które
I've created a certain amount of movies.
stare, ale jare.
They're old, but they're pretty cool.
Myślę, że mogę nieskromnie dalej polecić
And I still think I can recommend them.
i myślę, że te filmy dalej mocno się trzymają.
And I think those movies have stood the test of time.
W rankingu filmów antysowieckich,
When it comes to anti-Soviet movies,
w rankingu filmów
prawda.
antysowieckich, defilada zwycięzców, o wspólnej defiladzie Niemców z Sowietami w Brześciu Litewskim w 1939
about the joint victory parade of Germany and Soviet Union,
roku, Marsz Wyzwolicieli,
the march of the damn, I'm forgetting the word. I'm forgetting words lately. The March of the Liberators.
film o rozpętaniu II wojny
The movie about how World War II was started
światowej przez, uwaga, Związek Sowiecki.
by the Soviet Union.
Wspaniałe
Przez Związek
filmy,
Sowiecki.
moje ulubione
Transformacja.
dokumenty.
The transformation.
Ja panu za nie
części
bardzo dziękuję, ale
nieukończonego
muszę
cyklu.
kończyć ten akapit.
I'm sorry, we'll have to end this little fragment of our talk.
Muszę kończyć ten akapit, bo czas naprawdę
We
też nam
really
się
are out of time.
Prześlizgnął niepostrzeżenie. No i tu muszę tylko tyle powiedzieć, że no, nie
And just say here
udało mi się pana jakoś przyszpilić z tą
that I've not been able to pin you
pro czy antyrosyjską.
with the anti or pro-Russianness.
No ale na co,
Zostawiam państwu
czy ja
I will leave it to the audience to decide.
jestem,
konkluzję.
Czy ja
Starałem się zadać
I tried
wszystkie najważniejsze pytania w tej sprawie.
in this
Yes.
matter. It is not
Jak gdyby, no tak to rozumiem.
Jesus.
Pan
It is not possible not to have the impression that with certain techniques, Mr. Brown actually ran away from giving a concrete answer to uncomfortable questions. It is evident that he could have been squeezed further. It is unfortunate that Mr. Brown has not been asked about how Russia and Belarus treats its own citizens, that the whole Polish-Belarusian border crisis had not been discussed. And it is interesting that the mechanism of the Finnish-Russian border has not been really explored at all. A thing that could have been discussed, that would have been nice to be discussed here, was the infamous Tucker Carlson interview. And the place of Poland within this interview, the way Putin has spoken about Poland, and about how Russia has many times threatened Poland with nuclear war, and how Russia has really pushed the theory that Poland wants to invade and take over Western Ukraine. Brown is very eager to use arguments when it comes to the alleged lack of territorial claims from Russia. It would be worthy to ask him if Russia before the war actually had any claims to Ukrainian territory, or maybe Crimea was just taken over by the little green people. Maybe it was just the little green people that took over Crimea and organized the ridiculous referendum. And Putin just said that he had nothing to do with it. But maybe the questioning will happen some other time. Yeah, this is basically the face of the Confederacy Party. So I hope my translation did it at least a bit of justice. And that you understand a little bit about what movement is behind the Polish farmer protest. What sort of ideology basically is behind the farmer protest. I think it's really important because many people, I guess Western streamers who cover the topic of the protest on the Polish-Ukrainian border are missing this important detail of an extremely reactionary, an extremely pro-Russian party being a benefactor, the benefactor of these protests, and that this party is also using the protests to facilitate their entering into positions of power already due to the protests, due to the rhetoric shared by the Confederacy Party, the Confederacy Party has gained a lot of popularity, especially among the farmers, the peasants as they call themselves, which might prove to be very troublesome during the local elections, especially since even though the current coalition has won the parliamentary elections, it is still enough of a brittle state that losing local elections alongside with losing the presidential election next year could very well just undo all the things that have been gained so far by the current coalition. So the situation in Poland is, as always, still very brittle, to say the least. I don't know. At this point, I think it is important for the Polish government to recognize just how dangerous the Confederacy Party is, that it's actually working against the Polish state's interest, and to do more radical steps to do a crackdown on the whole border blocking process and the spilling of grain. 160 tons of grain has been spilled just recently from a train. So I guess let me see something else. If I have anything interesting for you. Oh God. I was so sure that the Confederacy would not be able to do anything after the parliamentary election, but I really underestimated the whole protest of the farmers and just how much the Confederacy Party would be able to gain on that one. I severely underestimated just how much political capital would be gained through this protest on